guys. Welcome to another episode of our TNCBA Tuesdays tips, tricks, and how-tos. And again, guys, these videos are meant to come out each week to help you out with the seasonal patterns or the seasonal conditions that we're dealing with, help you better prepare, and help you be more efficient on the water. Kelsey's with us again today, and he's going to be talking to you about a technique that is deadly this time of year in this cold water, get you away necessarily from looking at your graphs and dealing with that Demiki and looking down at the ground, hurt your neck all day.
Yeah.
But it's a deadly technique. Can be a little bit hard to understand sometimes, or a little bit hard to get into because you don't have a ton of feel per se.
No.
But we're talking about tight lining, and tight lining is a great way to still stay near the bank and catch a lot of really, really good fish. So Kelsey, you go ahead and take it away, buddy.
All right, so today we're going to talk about tight lining. One of the big keys is making sure you've got a good rod, a good 7. I use anywhere between a 7.4 medium action fast tip rod, just so I can get a lot of action out of that bait. And it doesn't take a lot to create action with a rod that's got the rod does more work for you.
Yes.
Than anything, and that's what you want because it can be tiresome. You want to make sure you have pretty light equipment for that.
Yeah, because
it will wear down on you.
And stuff in your forearms.
Yeah. So what I use is a 7 foot. This is a 7 foot medium action rod with a fast tip, and I like to use 6 pound line. And 6 pound line is probably the lightest I'll go. Normally I'm a 10 pound to 14 pound guy any other time of the year, but this you really want to have that 6 pound line one so you can cast it and make sure you're getting it out there to where you want to be, because you want to kind of hang off the banks a little bit with it.
Yeah.
So that way you can work it down in that water column.
But also this time of year is the lighter line. You're still looking for some sensitivity.
You're looking for sensitivity,
but we're also dealing with some very finicky fish in clear waters.
Exactly.
So you're dealing with less visibility from that. Now on this rod, you're not throwing. Typically, I like to throw a braid to fluoro leader, but this technique, you're not having a braid main line, are you?
I prefer just straight fluorocarbon. That's my preference.
Okay.
I mean, you can do braid, but like I said, I prefer fluorocarbon. I feel like you're going to get a better feel in that way. I mean, castability is going to be better. You don't have to worry about tying line together, and
because that's going to be the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Is if you do a connector knot with your tight lining, you want to have a extremely long leader. So that knot that's connecting the fluoro to braid, if you're going to continue to do that, you are going to want to have it, I'll go insanely long, at least double the length of the rod. So in this case,
Yes.
14 feet, maybe even 20 feet. But that's going to require you to tie a very good knot that'll come out off the spool very well, go through those eyelets. The FG knot's a really good one for connecting those. That will come out of that very easily. But otherwise, to get yourself away from having to do that braid to leader, just going straight fluorocarbon will help you out a ton. Now, Kelsey, I'm going to pull up here on my camera so that they can see it a little bit better. But talk to us a little bit about this jig head that you're throwing when you're tight lining.
that is one of my favorite tight line baits. Now, you can do the gulp minnow, things like this, but this is the ugly head jig.
Right.
They are extremely hard to come by anymore. They're not made anymore. But it is basically just a duck feather fly, and I normally tend to throw either pink or chartreuse.
Okay.
Whenever the water's muddy or you got a lot of rain or it's cloudy, overcast, that's when you want to throw that chartreuse. But whenever it's more like high skies, bluebird skies, you want to throw that pink. I feel like that's when that excels a little bit better.
Okay.
Killer baits on Cherokee, Holston.
Do you know how
Boone.
much this weighs?
That is, I wouldn't say it's any more than 1/8 ounce.
Okay, I was about to say it feels about like an 1/8 ounce.
Yeah, it's a very lightweight. So that's another reason you want to throw that light line so you can cast it so far.
Yeah.
But it's a very light bait. It just mimics little fish, and like I said, you'll throw it out there, and you'll reel really slow, and you'll just shake that rod the bat like that, and just reel super slow. And a lot of times you want to throw it on like a 45-degree angle bank. You can kind of parallel it in a way, cast way out there and keep it in that water column where it's in the strike zone a little bit more, or you can cast directly towards the bank and work it back slowly that way. A lot of times if you do that, you'll work it out a little bit, and then you want to let it go down to the bottom. What I did on our first tournament of the year last year, It was I think that was key, was throwing it out there and pulling it straight back, but I would let it sink down every so often, make sure I was making contact with the bottom and just keeping it about that far from the bottom of the lake.
But like he also said, if you start to figure out a certain depth range that they're holding in, don't be afraid to get out there and even parallel somewhat or get more of a 45-degree angle just to help you out with staying in that water column, that target zone that they're in, and to help you get bites. And like he also said, with that 1/8 jig head, you're going to have a much better action on the bait with that 6-pound test.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to cast better for you with that lighter line. And then pay attention to, like what he was talking about, you're always imparting action on that bait.
Exactly.
And the thing that we're looking at here is we're talking about water temperatures. What do you typically like?
For anywhere from 40 up to about 55 degrees is about where I'll throw that. That's about the.
And you're saying that the 55, I mean, that's the high end.
55 is the highest end of it. I would throw it, and then after that, I would start throwing more
Kitex and
jerkbaits, things like that. Something that's a little bit bigger profile.
But then
this
think
is when
about
those fish are really finicky.
Right, and think about what your bait fish are doing in that 40-degree water temperature. Typically, a lot of times we'll have a shad kill. Those shad will be dying, they're quivering, so that shaking that as it comes through the water column, you're trying to imitate and mimic that dying shad. It's got a quiver to it, and it's just slowly sinking. That's the other thing about the 1/8 ounce here. This bait is going to fall slower than a quarter or a half.
Exactly.
You don't want to have that quick of a fall, and people do the same thing, like with a jig and their trailer. During the summertime, you'll put a little bit, maybe a thinner trailer that has a little bit more action. But this time of year, you'll put like a good sized meaty chunk on there. It doesn't have a lot of action, but it'll fall just really slow through there.
Oh yeah, and especially with throwing that light line. Another key part is your reel. Make sure you have a good reel with good drag, because I mean, a lot of times you can't horse these fish. You gotta let them do what they're gonna do, because I mean, that's such a light wire hook. I mean, if you don't have your drag set right, they will straighten that hook out in a heartbeat. And I mean, it's really key to make sure that you have a good drag system on your reel, and make sure you got that drag set just right to where you can make sure that you can penetrate the hook, but not so much that you're going to horse that fish in and straighten out your hook or whatever. And another thing about this bait is the knot.
Yes.
You want to make sure that you tie a loop knot to this bait. Here, I'll let you take that over there and show it.
Because that loop knot, guys, is going to make it. You can see that there. There you go. That loop knot. One thing that you want to keep in mind is notice that the knot is not past the point of the hook, so that hook couldn't get up inside of that loop. But you want to have that loop so that bait has a little more action to it as you're working it. If you have it directly tied on there, Kelsey.
Well, and another thing is if you can see right there, if you hold it up above it, it keeps that bait level. So it keeps it to where it looks more natural. Right. It's not pulling it up and down a certain way. That it's not heavy. This bait right here, for some reason, I don't know how they did it, but that little lead head that they've got on it is balanced just right to keep that bait
horizontal on
the water column. So I mean, that's a very key thing that you want to do, because you don't want it to be, you don't want to tie a polymer knot where it's coming up and down and it's
and let's say that polymer knot moves around on the eyelet and it's stuck out here on the front, like it's going to give it a much different action. So that loop knot allows it to freely swing. But again, a killer technique in the wintertime. Cold water technique. Definitely add it to your arsenal there, along with the Demiki, maybe a Kitech. And remember that those water temperatures dipping down into the 40s. This is where this is really, really going to shine. 45-degree banks to bluffs. Those are the areas that you're really going to want to focus on. Kelsey, got anything else for us, bud?
I think that's it.
All right, guys. I hope you all get a chance to jump out on the water, try out this technique, and I hope that it puts some fish in the boat for you. Check us out next week on our TNCBA tips, tricks, and how-to. See you later, guys.
See you.